Joining us now on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline, friend of the program, a man who always brings it, the most well-prepared analyst in this shop, Steve Cleveland with us. Steve, nice to have you back on the show.
Good to be with you. Good morning.
All right, so we've had our very strong opinions put out there already.
Put out our correct opinions.
On the Twitter question, can BYU overlook San Diego tonight? Why or why not? What do you think?
Well, the coach, with the coach speaking, you would say absolutely you can't overlook anyone. History says that the 3 times that BYU has played the University of San Diego while they've been in the WCC, collectively scoring, the aggregate is 84 points per game for BYU and 49 for University of San Diego.
Yeah.
So when you see statistics like that, you can say, well, they may not have to play a perfect game to win, but it's a different team. It's a different time. Obviously, they're not going to look past this group. I mean, they need every game they play. They need to continue to get better because the most important games are coming in the next 2 or 3 weeks of the season. So I would be really surprised if they're overlooking San Diego, especially considering the fact that they got beat by them at home on the road. So that's not going to happen. They're not going to overlook this team. And you never know if history will repeat itself, but it's hard for me to believe that there's that kind of differential between 2 teams over the last 3 years from away and home.
The question wasn't, will BYU? It's can they? Yeah, so I appreciate that answer as well. And I'm not huge into, hey, 5 years ago has this huge impact on tonight, right? Because It doesn't for the most part. But this team, this BYU team at home, Cleve, against UVU and Gonzaga, you throw those out, like the worst and maybe toughest opponents. BYU's 13-0 at home. BYU's 6-0 in league against at home. 19.5-point win. Why is it that BYU lost by 13 at San Diego, yet BYU's a 16.5-point favorite and quite possibly could win big tonight? That's crazy.
Well, number one, they shoot the ball a lot better at home, and they've got the energy of the crowd. It's where they practiced every day. It's kind of an interesting thing. I'm in North Carolina right now, and I'm here to see a couple of games with the NC State. They played North Carolina last night, and they played Notre Dame on Saturday. And they don't practice in their facility that they play in. And I'm just trying to wrap my arms around that. So how difficult could that be? You're playing in a neutral court every time you have a home game. But that's not the case for BYU. The Marriott Center is a friendly place for them. That's where they're more relaxed. And it's pretty typical of young players, where they're going to be comfortable, where they play all the time, and having some of their first experiences on the road, or maybe being away for 2 years and having that experience again. The adjustments and the fact that everybody plays better at home. It doesn't matter who you are. You just shoot the ball better. You're more comfortable there. But certainly, when I was there and when Dave was there, I remember having 40-plus wins in a row. Dave's had the same thing. I think probably every coach who's ever coached here has had some pretty long winning streaks at home because of the fan base, because they just play better at home. And it's sometimes hard, especially in the WCC where everybody's playing kind of in a high school gym. They come in here, the depth perception's different, and very few people. The fact that UVU came here and shot that well, most of that team plays at BYU all the time in the spring and the summer, and some of the guys actually even played in the BYU program. Very few teams come into the Marriott Center and shoot it.
President Coach Steve Cleveland with us on BYU Sports Nation. If you couldn't tell, Jeremy and I are collectively okay with overlooking San Diego because of what comes to the Marriott Center on Saturday night. 22nd ranked St. Mary's, a game that's been circled on the calendar for a long time for most of BYU Sports Nation. What kind of chance do you give BYU to not just beat San Diego tonight, but to make it 2-0 this week with a win over St. Mary's?
Well, I'll say the same thing that I said against Gonzaga, and it almost happened here. But I think it's, they've got to get to the free throw line. I think if they make 20 free throws, if they have less than 10 turnovers, if they just do what they normally do at home, they're always around 39, 40 rebounds, shoot about 45%. I don't think they have to play better than they've ever played at home. I think if they play the way they normally do, that they've got a great opportunity to win. And, obviously it's not going to be a game of great pace unless St. Mary's turns it over, because they're going to control the ball. They're going to shoot the ball late in the shot clock. I think BYU's more prepared today to adapt to that style than they were a month ago when they played them. And I think certainly the San Francisco game, kind of a gut check time for that team, And they got together there in the day or two off, and I think that game will really prepare them for St. Mary's. Couple things. One, offensively, they're doing some different things with high-low, with Mika up higher, around the free throw line extended or even the top of the key. He's proved that he can shoot that, and isolating Yoli a little more. So I think that's going to be effective. And I just think defensively they played with more purpose, and it's a team that can hurt you a lot of different ways. I think the key thing, I think an article was written on it earlier in the week in Salt Lake, but they've got to stay out of foul trouble when they play St. Mary's. They can get away with a little bit of foul trouble against San Diego, but if Mika and Yoli Childs aren't on the floor, they can't beat St. Mary's. I mean, they can't. I mean, they have to have those two on the floor playing well, because St. Mary's is so solid inside and they have such balance in their scoring. So, they can absolutely win here, but they're going to have to do things and play well that at times they haven't done against the better teams in the league.
I think we just answered the question, can the show overlook San Diego? And the answer is yes. We just talked about St. Mary's. Just to be clear right there. Ken Palm gives BYU a 30% chance of winning that game Saturday. And to me, I look at that game not as a game for context of the regular season, but to me, that tells me whether – Saturday will tell me whether BYU can get to Tuesday night in Vegas. That's the championship game. What do you think the import of Saturday's game is for BYU on this season?
Well, I think it's important. You know what? If BYU beats St. Mary's here at home, then they'll have a belief and a confidence that will take them into the tournament and allow them to do the same thing there. If they get beat at home by St. Mary's, I'm not Kim Palm, but it would be single-digit numbers to beat St. Mary's in a neutral court. And so I think a lot of this is just the kind of the mindset that, hey, we need to beat a good team here, and we haven't done that in quite a while. We need to beat a good team here. And and San Francisco's had a pretty solid year, and they did a nice job defensively against them, and they took away the easy shots. But San Francisco was also a team that they matched up real well. I mean, they don't penetrate off the dribble, they don't post anybody up, and so. Even though I thought BYU really played well, it was a game that was easier for them to play than a St. Mary's team who will pound it inside, who will make them guard for, 28 seconds at a shot clock and have patience to stay in a stance and really test their discipline and their ability to kind of sustain a defensive effort. So we watched BYU come back in Gonzaga in the second half. And that game got close, and it could have turned if a shot's made here or there. And St. Mary's is not Gonzaga. And BYU matches up much better with St. Mary's than they do Gonzaga. And that game at home was close. And I suspect there'll be a great crowd again, and there'll be a lot of energy in the building. And I think it's a great opportunity for BYU to win there. And having a couple wins underneath their belts. And had they lost at San Francisco, and they hadn't really fought through that, and that's what they did, then, it had been a really difficult week. But I just think that win at San Francisco has kind of restored their faith, and I think the coaches, too, saw that, hey, okay, we executed a game plan. We actually played with a purpose, and we did the things we need to do. Let's do it again. And I think a warm-up against USD, and I don't mean warm-up in the sense that taking them too lightly, but just an opportunity to play one time more before they play St. Mary's will be a benefit to them on Saturday.
We're talking with former BYU basketball head coach Steve Cleveland on BYU Sports Nation. At this point of the season, how much is BYU, the coaching staff, the players, thinking about that West Coast Conference tournament and the opportunity that is in Las Vegas?
Well, it's in the back of their mind, but right now the coaching staff and the players are not thinking about that. I mean, I think they realize that to get to the NC2A tournament, and that's still their goal, that the tournament is the key to that. Though I would say this, and I know, if they were to win out right now in league, that would obviously mean a win at Gonzaga, which they have done twice before, not with this young a team. But if they were to win out and get to the finals, I don't think they have to win the WCC tournament. I think they could really, by beating St. Mary's twice and beating Gonzaga before they got in the finals of that tournament. But that's probably unlikely. But it's not something that's heavily on their mind. I think the biggest thing on their mind is BYUSN and St. Mary's. Have a great week here. Go to Portland. I know Portland played them strong at home, but beat Portland, and then just play a relaxed game against. No pressure on them at Gonzaga, and see where they go. So the key thing is to be playing well before they get to that tournament. I think that's the key thing. And one of the things that really bodes well for BYU is that sometimes attrition can be a good thing. And I think what's going to happen here is over 3 or 4 games, everyone, the 6 or 7 players that are going to be playing most of the minutes now have adjusted to each other. They've all adjusted to new roles, and they're getting more confident. They're locked into that rotation. The coaches know what it's going to be. The guys that are playing know what it's going to be, and the guys on the bench know what it's going to be. And in order for someone off the bench to come, there's going to have to be some significant foul trouble. And I think you're going to see a team that's more confident in their purpose, because I remember as a junior college coach one time, my first year, I had to get rid of about 5 guys for breaking team rules. So we had 5 players, good players, and then we had a manager. And you know what? The manager was there to substitute for everybody for a few minutes here and there. And we played better than we played when we had 10 or 12. And I think that's what's happened here. You're down a couple guys. You have an inexperienced bench. This group knows what their role is now, and there's not as much of adjusting. So I like the confidence. There's always more confidence when you know that you're going to be on the floor and that you have a particular role. So I think the attrition can be a positive thing, even though they do miss, Kyle Davis and L.J. Rose.
Coach, always a pleasure to talk to you. The man who brought the greatest hair and mustache to the campus of UC Irvine, Steve Cleveland.
Hey, guys, let me tell you one thing. I just watched North Carolina play last night. I promise you this. I love Gonzaga. It's the best team they've ever had, but they'd have a few losses in this league. I just tell you that right now.
Oh, absolutely. The ACC? Yeah.
Yeah, the ACC is real, man. I tell you what, I watched North Carolina. I had a front row seat to watch North Carolina, and they are long and athletic and can score it, and it was just really an eye-opening thing to see. And in fact, that there's about 6 or 7 teams like this in the league every night. I mean, that is by far the toughest league in the United States. There might be 8 or 9 teams from the ACC going to the tournament this year, but yeah, as good as Gonzaga is, and as well prepared and as well coached, they're not going through this league unscathed. I
Coach,
can tell you that.
When you have a courtside seat, we need to see pictures of this on Twitter.
You haven't tweeted in 4 years, Coach.
I know I'm terrible. I'll tell you what. I'm going to be at the Notre Dame game Saturday. And I'll get some nice pics.
Yeah.
And I'll get them out there on my Twitter. That'd be a good way to kind of get reconnected with the Twitter world.
Absolutely. Coach, great stuff. Always nice to talk to you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, have a great week. Bye-bye.
You got it. Steve Cleveland on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline. Deseret First, your values, your timeline, your financial future.